It's a dire situation in Sudan as the conflict rages on. The war was triggered by a dispute between the army and the Rapid Support Forces over a transition to civilian rule. Fighting has
And organizations say over 80% of Sudanese healthcare facilities are not functioning. But first up, the news with Onele Nzinzi and our sports headlines with Msibudi Makura.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Lulu. Good afternoon. I'm Cholani Tulongwepe. Thousands of Ivorians took to the streets in Abidjan, Cote d'Ivoire to protest against the exclusion of opposition leaders from the upcoming presidential election. Cote d'Ivoire is due to hold a presidential vote in October. Earlier this year, four main opposition figures, including former President Laurent Gbagbo and former Credit Suisse chief executive Tidjane Thiam, were barred from running by the Electoral Commission. Last month, 83-year-old President Alassane Ouattara announced that he would seek a fourth term. Ouattara's candidacy is contested after he changed the constitution in 2016 to remove presidential term limits. Political analyst Kenneth Mohatle has criticized the foundations that have withdrawn from the upcoming national convention in South Africa, saying their decision has raised concerns. Several legacy foundations, including the Thabo Mbeki, Steve Biko and F.W. de Klerk, announced their withdrawal last week. President Cyril Ramaphosa has reaffirmed that the event will proceed as scheduled on Friday, despite the foundation's existence. Mohatle says the foundations have no regard for public outrage over the cost of holding the event.
I'm a little bit worried with the attitude of the foundations because they also do not show some regard because they also understand that the government is not in a good financial state, which shows that it may be futile at the end of the day because we can see that it's more of performative exercise rather than substantial exercise that could transform the lives of South Africans.
President Ramaphosa has meanwhile urged women to use the forthcoming national dialogue to raise issues affecting them. In his letter to the nation, he says it's important to bring the challenges to the attention of the authorities. This as organizations from across the country will gather at the National Convention in Pretoria to kickstart the national dialogue. Ndebo Mokobo has more.
This convention is the precursor to the national dialogue aimed at bringing South Africans together to discuss the kind of South Africa they want. President Cyril Ramaphosa says, like women who protested against the unjust past laws in the 1956 Women's March to the Union buildings, women of today must also take their plight to the authorities at the national dialogue. He has called on all sectors of society to ensure the full participation of all women in the national dialogue, insisting that this would be the most fitting and powerful tribute to the legacy of the pioneers of the 1956 Women's March.
Aid organizations say over 80% of Sudanese healthcare facilities are not functioning. This comes as the conflict between the Sudanese Armed Forces and the Rapid Support Forces continues to intensify. Recently, the RSF announced a parallel government. This is totally opposed by the army. International spokesperson of the Red Cross Committee in Sudan, Adimam Hazam.
They need peace. They need safe haven for them and their kids. As you know, this escalation of the conflict is enforcing them to leave their homes. They displaced for many times to reach the safe place, to find where they can. There is a lot of challenges. In Sudan, the same, we are facing the challenging of access, but through our dialogue and talks with the parties to the conflict, we try to have that access. We managed to support more than 2 million Sudanese with our assistance.
And finally, Australia has become the latest country to announce that it will recognise Palestinian statehood at the UN General Assembly in September. The Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, added that there was no future for Hamas in the Palestinian state. Albanese said the decision was prompted by the humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza and Israel's expansion of illegal settlements in the occupied West Bank. For any news stories you would like to share with us, please do send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 117 714 4459. For Channel Africa News, I'm Jolani Tulongwepe.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
In our sports headlines, Uganda face off with Niger in a Group C showdown that could end one team's CHAN campaign. And Jasmine Paolini is through to the last 32 at Cincinnati Open. I'll be back with these and other stories at the bottom of the hour.
Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time.
Well, thank you to Jwalani Tulongwepe with our news update and Figile Lingwati with our sports headlines. It is 12:06 Central African Time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa on DSTV's audio bouquet channel 802, an OpenView channel 628, and on www.channelafrica.co.za, as well as on the SABC Plus app, available on the Apple and Google Play stores. And join us in conversation on our social media platforms. That's on X, Instagram, and subscribe on YouTube at Channel Africa 1. On Facebook at Channel Africa. You can also subscribe on YouTube at Channel Africa 1, and you can send us your voice notes and comments on +2763 406 9126 hashtag Africa Update. Now, today on hashtag Africa Update Ask, we focus on the many countries on the African continent going to elections this year, but a number of them are blocking opposition leaders from running. Now, our question to you today is, what is the political landscape looking like where you are? Share your thoughts on Channel Africa's social media platforms at Channel Africa 1, that's X and Instagram, at Channel Africa on Facebook, and send your voice notes and comments to +2763 as 406 9126 hashtag Africa Update Us.
The Midnight Snack, 12 to 3 a.m.
Young couples or young people that are getting married, we often hear of divorces, that they're getting divorced, and it's quite worrying because when we attend these weddings, we want to see these people flourish and celebrate 30-year anniversaries. What do you think is the main challenge that is facing newlyweds?
We say that, tell me how you were raised and I'll tell you how you love. So when we see people getting married, that's not where the relationship actually starts. The relationship starts with how you were raised, what you were familiar with, because we are attracted to what we are familiar with. If you don't have a background where love was prominent, where love was authentic, it's going to be very difficult for you to manufacture that in later life. So our upbringing has something to do with it.
The Midnight Snack, every Monday, 12 to 3 a.m. with Chanduko Ligege.
The SABC is pleased to announce the launch of the new self-registration platform. Now, vendors wishing to do business with the SABC can self-register on our internally developed platform. Vendors are able to access this platform on our website as www.sabc.co.za, hashtag SABC, /SABC /under e-tenders, or self-register at etender.sabc.co.za / and follow the prompts. I'll visit SABC social media pages for more details.
Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo on Channel Africa.
It is 12:09 Central African Time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. The International Committee of the Red Cross says over 24,000 people have gone missing since 2015 in Nigeria. Many people in the country are calling on government to tackle insecurity and ensure the missing people are found. Tazem Akende filed this report.
The ICRC in the report says more than half of the total cases were children at the time they went missing. According to ICRC's Regional Director for Africa, Patrick Youssef, the missing persons are predominantly from Nigeria's northeastern states of Borno, Adamawa and Yobe, which are the worst hit by insurgency. But the issue of missing persons is not unique to Nigeria. The Red Cross says 71,000 people across various African countries battling conflicts, natural disasters and migration have been missing since June last year. This represents a 75% rise from 40,708 recorded in 2019. Countries across the continent say they are doing all they can to address security concerns confronting them, such as forming alliances and joint task forces, which would also address the issue of missing persons. In Nigeria, the President Bola Tinubu-led government has directed security agencies in the country to identify and secure the release of missing persons and ensure they are reunited with their families. Tassim Akende, Jos.
Africa Update, your daily dose of African insights with Lulu Gaboo on Channel Africa.
Thousands of Ivorians took to the streets in Abidjan, Ivory Coast, that's Côte d'Ivoire, to protest against the exclusion of opposition leaders from the upcoming presidential election. Côte d'Ivoire, the biggest economy of Francophone West Africa, is due to hold a presidential vote in October. Earlier this year, 4 main opposition figures, including former President Laurent Gbagbo and former Credit Suisse chief executive Tidjane Thiam, were being barred from running by the Electoral Commission. Last month, 83-year-old Ouattara announced that he would seek a 4th term. Ouattara's candidacy is contested after he changed the constitution in 2016 to remove presidential term limits. And to discuss this further, we have Dr. Jean Nazarie Oyoru, a representative of African People's Party of Côte d'Ivoire, a PPACI, one of the parties that organized this march. Dr. Oyoru, thank you for joining us on Africa Update, and good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for having me.
Now, what are the reasons for the protest, and what are you hoping will come out from this?
The reason, I think that you already mentioned the reasons. The first one is that the governments have banned most of the opposition leaders from contesting the upcoming presidential election in October 2025. And then the second reason is that President Ouattara his decision to run to bid for the next upcoming presidential election, which is unconstitutional. So the Ivorians just took it to the street to be heard by the government.
And, you know, thousands of people have turned up. What does this signal? What does this show? And do you think that President Ouattara and his government are going to listen to the people?
I think that it is a powerful signal of popular frustrations. Okay? And we say it, we are manifesting as enough is enough. No true democracy without a true justice. And we are willing, and we are millions saying yes to Gbagbo and Thiam. So for the upcoming, we hope that the governor will listen to the people of Ivory Coast and then call them for the talks such a way to ease the tension that is going on in Ivory Coast.
So when you say yes to former President Gbagbo and yes to the former Credit Suisse chief executive Tidjane Thiam, what are you saying yes to? What do you guess? There is a background in terms of the former President Laurent Gbagbo and now Tidjane Thiam. What are you saying yes for? What is it that you're identifying or realizing about these two opposition leaders and their potential candidacy?
So currently what is happening is that they have been banned. Okay, they are prevented from running the election just because the justice system in Ivory Coast just banned them from competing. So you say that we don't want a justice system that is going to be used by the government to prevent significant leaders to take part of the election that is coming. So yes, we mean they must be included in as candidate for the upcoming election.
And what were the reasons given for their banning from running for these elections?
For Mr. Tidjane Thiam, I think that he was disqualified over one of the law of Ivory Coast that says that a citizen with, a person with a dual citizenship must not run for the presidential election. But Thiam actually renounced to that French citizenship before some month ago. So he shouldn't be banned for that.
And former President Laurent Gbagbo?
For President Laurent Gbagbo, remember that President Laurent Gbagbo was held in the ICC for years, and before he was not even available in the country, and then yet they threw a trial against him when he was held in the ICC, which is not acceptable. And it's the reason, actually, all the reason for which he was sent to the ICC. And then he was free from ICC. So we think that if he was free from the ICC, I mean, there's no other trial that's possible in the Ivory Coast.
Now, elections in Cote d'Ivoire have usually been fraught with tension and violence. Now, when President Ouattara announced his bid for a third term, several people were killed in the election violence. Are we likely to see a repetition of those years, in your view? What do you think is more than likely to happen?
Yes, election Coast have repeatedly risked and devolving into violence. I agree with that. In 2020, tension escalated after Ouattara's controversial third term bid, resulting in several deaths. I agree with that. Now, given that the ongoing exclusion of key candidates, outrage from the opposition, and historical precedent of violence following contested terms, I am afraid if nothing is done, I think that we are running into some violence again, unless the government just come back and set some talks to ease all these anger from the opposition leaders and the population.
Should government come back and say, listen, we see you're in the streets, you're protesting, you're not happy with what's happening and how everything is unfolding. If they're willing to talk, then is that something that you're willing to do? And on the flip side, if they just don't come back to you, then what happens?
We are hoping that the government will come back and speak to the people and get an agreement so that the presidential election is run smoothly. So that's really what we are hoping, because we have been asking for this since maybe 1 year before today. So if nothing's happened, I think that we are afraid that we are going to escalate the protest and maybe use some legal resources, like involving the UN, involving the AU, such you get, the problem solved.
Do you think that they will make a difference, especially the international community, whether it's other countries' leaders or the UN? Do you think it generally makes a difference? Just thinking back historically for Cote d'Ivoire.
Yes, I think so. Remember that President Ouattara was elected thanks to the international community. He was backed by the international community to take power in the Ivory Coast. And we remember that President Mbeki was involved in the candidacy of President Ouattara at that time. So if the president now is becoming becoming a problem, we think that you need to go back to those who helped him to come into power to solve the problem between President Ouattara and the people.
Well, Dr. Oyuru, thank you so much for joining us on Africa Update. We'll leave it there for today.
Thank you.
That's Dr. Jean Nazaye Oyuru, a representative of African People's Party of Cote d'Ivoire, PPACI, joining us on the line.
Tune in and turn up the volume. This is Channel Africa. Africa Update on Channel Africa.
It is 20 after 12 Central African time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. Our South Africa Sports, Arts and Culture Minister Gayton McKenzie is facing backlash after tweets with racially derogatory language toward black South Africans resurfaced online. Action SA has lodged a complaint with the South African Human Rights Commission, and the African Transformation Movement has lodged a complaint with the Presidency, Parliament and the Parliamentary Joint Committee on Ethics. Action SA is also taking action against Minister Dean McPherson, Minister of Public Works and Infrastructure, for allegedly using racially charged language against party supporters. A brand reputation strategist, Soli Mueng, now joins us on the line. Soli, good afternoon and thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Good afternoon to your listeners.
Now, Soli, what does this type of action do to the reputation of a person?
Well, because he's spoken against racism before. I saw a tweet of him saying that anybody can be racist, irrespective of their race. But he also should know that the slur, the word, the N-word or the K-word in South Africa it's totally unacceptable. It pushes a lot of people onto emotional. To be very defensive and angry. It reminds people of a past that they don't want to go back to. So he's wrong to behave the way he did. I think he should apologize. It looks like he has, and nobody must be allowed to do what he did.
Now, Gayton McKenzie is someone that came up harsh on the Open Chat broadcasters recently. How is it that despite having these tweets in his background, he was so vocal? Is it a case of the memory maybe? How do we break it down?
Yeah, look, I think, I don't know, I understand why so many people still forget that whatever you say, what I'm saying to you now, for instance, on TV, on radio, what I say on TV, what I put on social media, it stays there. And it's going to be used by other people in the future as an arsenal to go against you. Or you can use as an arsenal to build your own reputation, to show that you're consistent, you're reliable and all that. But he probably forgot that he had said stuff like that in the past, and somebody managed to dig him up. And it's not the first time that you see stuff that people have said in the past come up. Mahatma Gandhi, I've seen people come up with stories, stuff that Mahatma Gandhi said about black people, horrendous stuff in the past. So I think that it's important that you're consistent and that you apologize. If you've said things and it's not where you are today, you need to apologize unreservedly and condemn that sort of thing and make sure that you never say it again. But you can't say one thing to one group of people and then insult another group of people. I mean, he's absolutely correct to have stood up to defend the image of colored people that was tarnished by those people, by those podcasters. But that doesn't give him reason to then be the person who also needs to be corrected.
Let's speak about the likely impact of his utterances in the long run. What do you foresee as a brand strategist?
Look, the best he can do now is to apologize, and it's up to him to be convincing that he really means it. Of course, people are going to use it in the future against him. People are going to remind him that he once said this, but he must also be remembered for having apologized unreservedly for it. What kind of punishment must he get? Well, if you say people are saying he must resign, Ramaphosa must fire him. There are so many people that must be fired by Ramaphosa. VBS people and also people in that cabinet who shouldn't be there. In the National Assembly, where people who shouldn't be there, who facilitated, enabled, benefited from state capture. So the thing is, we have lowered the bar so much in South Africa. What punishment? What do you punish and what do you not punish? But I think in terms of this topic, racism and racial slurs, they should never be tolerated, irrespective of who the person is. And if he apologizes and then says it again in the future, then it would mean that his apology would not have been sincere.
Now, let's talk about very quickly, just as we wrap up, about the reaction from other political parties, and leaders in government, basically saying that they have lodged complaints with the South African Human Rights Commission, and a call for the presidency and Parliament and the Parliamentary Joint Committee on Ethics to take action on this. What are we likely going to see going forward, especially, considering that he is one of those ministers that have hit the ground running and are delivering?
Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult one, isn't it? Because we have a constitutional code that it's okay to sing the kill the bull, kill the farmer, people who sing that song, and we're okay. So what do we tolerate, what do we not tolerate? Look, in the end, the Human Rights Commission, the case has been taken to them. They must make a ruling on this thing. It'll be interesting, it'll be telling to see which way they're going to jump. But it's a right thing to go to those bodies that are constitutionally mandated to deal with these sort of complaints. But we must also not be hypocrites as a community, as society. Kill the bull, kill the farmer is not cool. Kill the farmer is not cool. I think the Constitutional Court made a mistake in saying it's okay to sing that song.
Sally, we'll leave it there for today. Thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
A pleasure.
That's a brand reputation strategist, Soli Mueng, joining us on the line. It is 27 after 12 Central African time.
SABC News. Headline. The Midnight Snack, 12 to 3 a.m.
Young couples or young people that are getting married, we often hear of divorces, that they're getting divorced, and it's quite worrying because when we attend these weddings, we want to see these people flourish and celebrate 30-year anniversaries. What do you think is the main challenge that is facing newlyweds?
We say that tell me how you were raised and I'll tell you how you love. So when we see people getting married, that's not where the relationship actually starts. The relationship starts with how you were raised, what you were familiar with, because we are attracted to what we are familiar with. If you don't have a background where love was prominent, where love was authentic, it's going to be very difficult for you to manufacture that in later life. So our upbringing has something to do with it.
The Midnight Snack, every Monday, 12 to 3 a.m. with Chanduko Ligege. Africa Update on Channel Africa.
Aid organizations say over 80% of Sudanese healthcare facilities are not functioning. This comes as the conflict between the Sudanese armed forces and the Rapid Support Forces continues to intensify. Recently, the RSF announced a parallel government. Now, this is totally opposed by the army. Bonolo Maribe has more.
It's a dire situation in Sudan as the conflict rages on. The war was triggered by a dispute between the army and the Rapid Support Forces over a transition to civilian rule. Fighting has displaced over 12 million people and pushed half the population into acute hunger. International Committee of the Red Cross spokesperson in Sudan, Adnan Hazam, says that people are in need of the bare necessities.
They need food, they need medications, they need peace, they need safe haven for them and their kids. As you know, this escalation of the conflict is enforcing them to leave their homes. They displaced for many times to reach the safe place, to find where they can.
The ongoing conflict has devastated Sudan and plunged the Northeast African country into a humanitarian crisis. Hazam says this has created massive challenges.
There is a lot of challenges. In Sudan, the same, we are facing the challenging of access, but through our dialogue and talks with the parties to the conflict, we try to have that access. We managed to support more than 2 million Sudanese with our assistance.
The war between the Sudanese army and the RSF erupted in April 2023 when the former allies clashed over plans to integrate their forces. A number of initiatives have been attempted to try and bring peace to Sudan, but none have succeeded yet. Bonolo Maribe, SABC News.
Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time.
Well, today on Hashtag Africa Update Us, we focus on the many countries on the African continent going to elections this year. but a number of them are blocking opposition leaders from running. Now, we're asking you what the political landscape is looking like where you are. Share your thoughts on Channel Africa's social media platforms. That's on X, Instagram at Channel Africa 1, on Facebook at Channel Africa, and send your comments and voice notes to +2763 as 406 9126 hashtag Africa Update Us. Our news headlines up next with Rolani Tulongwepe.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Lulu. Good afternoon. Making headlines, thousands of Ivorians took to the street in Abidjan, Cote d'Ivoire, to protest against the exclusion of opposition leaders from the upcoming presidential election. Aid organizations say over 80% of Sudanese healthcare facilities are not functioning. This comes as the conflict between the Sudanese armed forces and the rapid support forces continues to intensify. And finally, Australia has become the latest country to announce that it will recognize Palestinian statehood at the UN General Assembly in September. I will have details on these and other stories at 1 o'clock.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective. Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
In our sports headline, we begin with football news ongoing in Uganda, Kenya and Tanzania. The Mandela National Stadium will become more than a venue. It'll be a stage where two nations fight to keep their Total Energies African Nations Championship CHAN dreams alive. Uganda, fueled by the roar of their home crowd, will face Niger in a Group C showdown that could end one team's campaign before it has truly begun. The stakes are stuck for Uganda. Victory could propel them towards the knockout rounds. For Niger, defeat could send them home. Uganda's head coach, Moli Begwaso, says his team will not simply repeat the approach that secured their win over Guinea. Instead, they will tailor their game to blunt Niger's threat. The 2025 COSAFA CAF Women's Champions League will return to South Africa's shores from the 22nd of August in Johannesburg. Godfrey Sapula says even though playing at home gives them a slight advantage, they will still have to pull a quality performance if they want to claim the championship.
Playing at home in this COSAFA Women's Championship does give us a little bit of an advantage, because we're going to have our supporters, backing us, and we really need them, But at the end of the day, football, it's still 11v11, we still got to go out on the field and do the job.
Now on to cricket news. Proteas batter Ryan Rickleton admitted after their loss to Australia in the first of the three T20 internationals that they would have had a chance to win the match had they not dropped Tim David on 56. David was let off the hook by Tristan Stubbs on the boundary in the 16th over, and South Africa lived to rue that error as he went on to score a match-winning 83 for the host. Rickleton, who top scored for the visitors with 71, was encouraged by how they took the game to the Aussies.
It's not an easy group for us.
And we created plenty of opportunities. I think if we took that one on Tim, when I think when he was on about 40 or 50, we could have bowled him out for 120, and that's a whole different game and a different conversation we're having. But I think the exciting thing is that, they came out guns blazing and we managed to create a lot of chances. So, that's quite exciting for us as a group. The fact that we could, pin such a formidable batting lineup down a little bit. So like I said, it's exciting. One or two things to probably tweak in the batting and just a bit more smart and hopefully, a bit better of a platform to start off.
And finally, with tennis news, Jasmine Paolini is through to the last 32 at Cincinnati Open. The Italian 7th seed need a couple of tie breaks before ousting the experienced Greek Maria Sakkari 7-6, 2, 7-6 and 5. A very different outcome to the last time these two met. It was their third round of the Madrid Open in April, with the world number 9 thrashed 6-2 and 6-1. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please do send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Figile Lungwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective. Africa in Song with Chanduko Ligege.
So when you think of African music, you think of kwasa kwasa, high life music from West Africa, Afrobeat from West Africa, of gospel music or faith music or spiritual music. But when we think of reggae music, we go to the Caribbean, and if it's Africa, we only think about Lucky Dube. Well, I'm here to introduce you to some reggae music from Africa. Salif Keita with Dakan Faye from Mali, and I must say this one was a real shock for me because I never had imagined Salif Keita on a reggae beat. But listening to him, it just proved to me how versatile he is as an artist, because you'd be expecting him to be on that vibe of West Africa, of ballads. But he really proved that he is very versatile, and I was pleasantly surprised.
Africa in Song with Chanduko Ligege. Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Good afternoon, I'm Nosipho Zuma. In your business news this hour, the South African presidency says the total cost of hosting the national dialogue will only be made known after the conclusion of the National Convention's roadmap of the rollout of the event. It was responding to the public criticism of a reported $39 million reported cost of the event. Several foundations have withdrawn from the preparatory phase of the event, citing government overreach, a rushed timeline, as well as lack of transparency and a confirmed approved budget allocation. Presidential spokesperson Vincent Magwenya says some of the foundations that form part of the dialogue proposed the amount to spend on the event.
The figure of over 700 million or 800 million came from some of the foundations, and immediately there was a great deal of discomfort on the side of the president and government. It's only after the National Convention has concluded the final roadmap of how the actual dialogue will roll out can we then work towards a final number. So as we speak, we do not know what the final budget cost will be for the national dialogue.
Women in South Africa's Limpopo province believe agriculture is the best solution for unemployment and poverty in the province. The country's unemployment levels remain high, with the latest figures sitting at 32.90% in the first quarter of 2025. The women, as well as young people in the province's rural areas, are looking at entrepreneurship as a recourse. Basani Rivisi has decided to farm on a small portion of land she obtained from her mother-in-law.
What led me to come here? I was so passionate in agriculture. When I studied these things, it was like a lack of jobs when I came here. I wanted to do something on my own because at school I studied business management. So I just think, which business that I can do? Then I just suggested that I can do agriculture.
Meanwhile, a female commercial tomato farmer, Alicia Mamuligi from Limpopo or Mangani in the Limpopo province, says she encountered several challenges in her journey to becoming a farmer.
The challenges that I came across, number one, farming is very expensive. So for me to start here, I was helped by my parents. Then from then, I started saving money each and every year. Then I debushed the other part that was not debushed.
US-based multinational companies such as McDonald's, Coca-Cola, Amazon and Apple are facing calls for a boycott in India as business executives and Prime Minister Narendra Modi's supporters stoke anti-American sentiment to protest against US tariffs. India is a key market for American brands that have rapidly expanded to target a growing base of affluent consumers, many of whom remain infatuated with the international labels seen as symbols of moving up in life. And finally, oil prices fell today, extending last week's more than 4% decline as investors looked to talks between the US and Russia later this week on the war in Ukraine. Brent futures fell 45 cents or 0.68%, while US West Texas Intermediate crude futures were down 49 cents or 0.77%. On Friday, US President Donald Trump said that he will meet Russian President Vladimir Putin on the 15th of August in Alaska to negotiate an end to the war in Ukraine. The talks follow increased U.S. pressure on Russia, raising the prospect that penalties on Moscow could also be tightened if a peace deal is not reached. Your financial indicators: $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,000 naira 531, and Botswana is 13 pula 39. Kenya, the dollar is trading at 128 shilling 564, and in Zambia is 22 kwacha 81. The BRICS countries: $1 in Brazil is trading at 5 real 43. Russia is 79 rubles 86. India is 87 rupees 64. China at 7 yuan 18, and in South Africa $1 is trading at 17 rand 73. $1 is trading at 74 pence to the British pound and 85 to the euro. Looking at commodities, gold is trading at $3,361 and platinum at $1,314 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil is at $66.38 a barrel. Now, for any news stories you would like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I'm Nosipho Soma.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective. Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time.
It is 12:41 Central African Time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. And thank you to Nosipho Zuma with our business news. Now, the ongoing legal battle over the remains of former Zambia's President Edgar Lungu has taken another dramatic turn. Just hours after a high court in South Africa ruled that Lungu's body should be repatriated to Lusaka for a state funeral, his family has filed an application for leave to appeal the decision in South Africa's Supreme Court of Appeal. Damon Siulapwa is a political analyst and a strong advocate for tribal unity and citizen economic empowerment, founder and editor-in-chief of The Voice newspaper in Zambia. And he spoke with Channel Africa's reporter Michael Mbewe on how the news has been received in Zambia.
I think the legal standoff between the Lungu family and the Zambian government actually is a reflection of a much more deeper, antagonism kind of politics between the UPND government and the PF. And it has divided the country far much more than people are willing to accept. And there's need to really deal with it. It also highlights Zambia's legal and procedure framework regarding the handling of former heads of state. I think they're not very clear, what would happen if a head of state dies with or without benefits still standing. So this is where we find ourselves in now.
So given your advocacy for national unity, how concerned are you that this prolonged dispute could deepen political or tribal divisions within the country?
Every Zambian is concerned with this unnecessary divisive and the nature of how this thing is going on. Why has it prolonged? It's something that we need to handle with care, because it risks, deepening the political rivalry between these companies even much further. And I think it is essential that leaders and influencers adopt a tone that promotes national unity, reminding citizens that Zambia's unity is more important than political affiliation or any personal sentiments. That would be my view on that one.
From a citizen empowerment perspective, what message does this delay send to ordinary Zambians who view President Lungu as a national figure deserving of a dignified and timely burial?
I think for many Zambians, the former president, regardless of any political disagreements, remains a national figure whose passing should be met with dignity and speed in terms of barrier arrangements. Prolonged or delays, it risks creating a perception that the country is struggling to rise above politics when it comes to honoring its leaders, which could weaken, public trust in national institutions. So I think really most Zambians are concerned. Regardless of what the story could have been, Lungu should be given a dignified barrier as the former head of state of Zambia.
The bone of contention is where? Where should he bear it?
There's no bone of contention there. There's no bone of contention there. The late president is a Zambian citizen, irrespective of where he died. So the burial should be in Zambia, irrespective of the misunderstanding between the government and the family.
Okay, so in your view, what role should the Zambian government be playing at this point? Should they pursue legal resolution or seek reconciliation with the family?
Well, since they have already gone to court and the ruling was in their favor, and I think they need to find a way to embrace the family and bring them in as partners in the burial of the former president. Being antagonistic against them when they've lost the case in court will not help anyone. We must remember that they are mourning, so anything is possible. People may act out of emotion. What is the bigger picture? The bigger picture is the country. The bigger picture is burying the former president with dignity. And the government has the power, the strength, the resources to guide this thing in a much more amicable way.
How do you think this ongoing saga is impacting Zambia's image internationally, especially with the matter now tied up in South Africa's legal system?
Okay, of course the world is watching how Zambia navigate this dispute, and the longer it remains unresolved, the greater the risk of projecting an image of disunity and probably institutional weakness on our part as a country. Resolving it in a dignified, conscience-driven manner would not only uphold Zambia's tradition, but also strengthen its reputation as a stable, respectful, and mature democracy. Zambia has been known to really host and help negotiate peace pacts for other countries. And I think that profile that the country has should not be lost because of politicking.
That was Damian Siulapwa, who is a political analyst and a strong advocate for tribal unity and citizen economic empowerment, a founder and editor-in-chief of The Voice newspaper in Zambia, speaking to Channel Africa's reporter Michael Mbewe.
Africa Update, your daily dose of African insights with Lulu Gaboo on Channel Africa.
The National Convention Organizing Committee says it's all systems go ahead of the first National Convention, expected to attract about 1,000 delegates and 200 organizations. This National Convention is the first step in creating a framework that will guide the country's first national dialogue to be held in 2026. And to speak further on this, we are joined on the line by our reporter, Dimakatso Lishoro. Dimakatso, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Hi, Lulu. Thank you for having me.
Now, talk to us. You were there when the briefing was made, and what's the purpose of this national convention this week? And the fact that there have been a number of legacy foundations pulling out of this convention. Talk to us about that. How are they explaining this?
So, Lulu, the National Convention is the first step, right, towards that national dialogue that we're expecting to take place next year. So this will culminate in a number of organizations across the country coming together to create a framework or theme of what is it that should be discussed at a national dialogue. They will agree on these themes. They will agree on the approach, the modalities for the public dialogues, and set up broadly a steering committee to coordinate the implementation of the dialogue going forward. As you said, about 1,000 people are expected to attend from across the country. Indeed, Lulu, the legacy foundations, what will have pulled out. They issued a statement last week. This includes the Thabo Mbeki Foundation, who said, this is important because obviously Thabo Mbeki was the first person to come out and suggest a national dialogue to imagine for South Africans to discuss the South Africa that they now imagine. They are pointing to this convention being rushed. They say that government has overtaken this whole process, which is meant to be citizen-led and is now being led by government. So they're unhappy about, how the arrangements have gone on so far. They haven't said that they're withdrawing from the dialogue itself. They're talking about this convention that is happening this weekend. So they are holding a media briefing this afternoon. So we'll hear more from themselves. What is it that they're unhappy about? Because from the organizing committee of the National Convention, this dialogue is led by citizens. They say that they are not in the slightest affected by the withdrawal of the legacy foundations. They're saying that, instead, they're saying that the work has fast-tracked in the last 14 days, if you will believe, Lulu, after the withdrawal of the foundations. So they've done more work since these legacy foundations have left, and this process is not about the foundation, it's about the people of South Africa. That is their view, Lulu.
And so the issue of costs has come up frequently. What has the organizing committee had to say about this?
Yeah, it is a concerning thing, right? Because, we all know the precarious condition in which South Africa's the precarious position that South Africa is in terms of finances. Government does not have money. We have heard a figure of 700 million being bandied about. The presidency came out yesterday, to say that the president was not happy about this huge amount, and now they are now saying that 60% of this whole process will be funded by government, and 40% they're expecting to come from donations. Like you have UNISA donating the venue today, they're donating the venue for the dialogue itself, the venue for the National Convention. You have NEDLEC, which is an organization where government, labor, and civil society meet to discuss important legislation matters. So they are funding part of this. So they'll be carrying the load of this convention, Lulu. We understand that these 1,000 delegates, they have had, airplanes booked. They will have food, they will have transportation, they will have hotels. So you can imagine the amount of money that's going into this. And the question remains whether South Africa needs even this dialogue. And this is part of what they'll be talking about. But whether do we need this dialogue? Do we not know what are the issues that need to be addressed in South Africa? And crucially, Lulu, is the standing of the recommendations or whatever outcome from this dialogue. Because at the moment, there's no clarity on the legal standing of the recommendations. Is it going to be part of policy? Who is going to implement this? Because, as you know, we've seen judicial commissions of inquiry where recommendations were made and they were ignored by government. So in terms of what will actually happen with whatever South Africans come 2026, it's even not clear at this point.
Talk to us about the mood, Makatso, because, in any media briefing, there are a lot of questions from different, reporters on the ground. And just the feeling after that media briefing, what is the chit-chatter between yourselves as, journalists and reporters on the ground, and the feeling that you're getting from, the leaders of this convention?
Yeah, there are more questions than answers, as I say, because they've said that there is no set budget. So, this could go up to $1 billion, Lulu, which is very concerning because we have people in South Africa who need jobs, who need healthcare, who need access to water. There are lots of things that ordinary South Africans need and could use with this money. So there's no set budget. They're saying that these dialogues will happen in communities. There will be 3 dialogues per ward. There are 4,300 wards. Money will go towards that. We don't know who is going to be getting this money. Who are the people going to be employed? Like then, in terms of the modalities, how this is actually going to take place, there are no answers to that. And that is the worrying thing about a lot of our colleagues, that, we seem to have more questions than answers, and the briefing today did not help to give us insight into exactly how things are going to unfold, because, Lulu, we cannot avoid the fact that we've had issues of corruption, and especially where huge budgets like this, right, are talked about, where we have, people taking money and the money going towards other things that are not intended. So in terms of how much money, and whether that money will not be taken from other crucial projects, right? That's all not been spoken about. All we know is that some of the money will come from the presidency budget. We don't know how much. Some will come from NEDLEC. We don't know how much. There's talk about the Treasury trying to come up with a figure. Treasury, who's, by the way, increased the country's debt, trying to cover all the needs of the country, now has to find money for this dialogue, which a lot of people, even in the room, are saying we don't actually need. We don't know what is it that we're supposed to talk about, because everything that we need as South Africans is in the media. Every day we have protests. We have people saying that we don't want this, we want this. Why is it that government is not doing that as a start?
Well, Dimakazo, there's a lot to unpack, and I guess as time goes on, we'll hopefully get more details and specific details to all the questions that not only the journalists have on the ground, but just the citizens as a whole, because it is a lot of money that is being spoken of. And is it just another talk shop, or is it something that will bring in solutions, and solutions where we will see on the ground, and how that then benefits all of us in the country?
Absolutely.
That's where we'll leave it. Thank you for your time on Africa Update. That's our reporter, Dimakazo Leshoro, joining us on the line. And it is a happy Monday. And hello to Tebogo Lekoleni of The Upside. How are you today?
Hello, Lulu. I'm fantastic. How are you doing? I haven't seen you in a whole week, so I've missed you.
Yes, I've missed you too, so, but Matsiko has been here, and so tell us about...
Holding it down.
Yeah. What's coming up today?
Here's what's coming up on the show this afternoon. On The Upside, talking about conversations that matter. Our first conversation will be focusing on the care in healthcare. Now, many private healthcares, they pay their doctors and those who work there based on how many tests they've done, the visits they've conducted on that particular day, but rarely on seeing through the patients till they get fully healed, and then also healthier lifestyles thereafter. Mm-hmm. We are talking about paying healthcare teams to keep people healthy rather than treat illnesses, which leads to better care, better teamwork within the facility itself, and then smarter use of resources. Mm-hmm. And then in light of Gayton Mackenzie's, people have dug up his past a bit there.
Yeah.
Past comments on social media, and we're asking the question, how can old social media comments affect your professional life? Can they indeed? Is there a leg for them to do so? We find out this afternoon. And then it is Women's Month in South Africa, and we're going to be talking to a wonderful, wonderful lady by the name of Mahotso Masingi Zondo. She's a transformational speaker, executive life and leadership coach, and the founder of Chateau Victoria, a luxury sanctuary for soul restoration and lifestyle transformation. Her theme this month is saying, let's stop just going and attending these events and themed parties. Instead, let's do something more impactful. Let's return to ourselves.
Wow.
Conversations that matter. That's what's coming up on The Upside this afternoon.
All coming up at the top of the hour with Tebogo Lekoleni and Matsuko Musito, The Upside. And for myself, Lulu Gaboo, it's been a great Monday. Let's do this again tomorrow and continue with us in our socials. And we'd like to hear more with regards to our questions on hashtag Africa Update Ask, with regards to opposition leaders being banned and being barred from running for elections in Cote d'Ivoire. You let us know what your political landscape is like currently. Our social media platforms on X, Instagram, and on Facebook at Channel Africa 1. And you can send your comments and voice notes to +2763. That's 406 9126. Hashtag Africa Update Us. Bye-bye.